And of course, delighted to be joined now by the former Chief Inspector of Ofsted. That's Amanda Spielman. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you're on the front page of on the newspapers today, attacking the Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, saying that she's putting teaching unions' interests ahead of the interests of children. What do you not like that she's planning to do?
There's a whole set of changes that are being made. One around restricting the freedoms that academies have. One, a curriculum and assessment review where we're waiting to see what's coming, putting the teacher training standards under review, and also some significant changes to inspection. And they add up. And first of all, it's not clear that these are based on sort of real evaluation of there being a specific problem. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses of what's there at the moment? And secondly, they add up to something that's very clearly edging towards always putting the interests of adults, the kinds of things that please union, further up the pecking order, and things that are good for children a bit further down. As Chief Inspector, my role was to look at things from children's point of view and parents' point of view. And I do think we're at a point where parents should be feeling some concern.
Well, indeed. I mean, we know actually one of the few really strong successes of the Tory years was actually the improvement in standards in state schools. Part of that was giving, having academies and giving more independence to good heads and good academy chains to just turn things around. I've been to a few of the schools where just absolute turnaround, and in particular for the children who most need it, who come from homes where school wasn't valued and parents are highly educated, and these children's lives are being turned around, and it's magnificent. And the international data, the comparisons with other countries have shown categorically schools in England have got better. Why would what the government is planning to do bring down standards and hurt children, though?
Well, first of all, the policy of the last 20 years of it generally increasing autonomy in the system seems to be a contributor to this trend of improvement. The curriculum reforms, the changes to inspection to really focus on substance and integrity, changes to the initial teacher training standards and early career framework. Without sort of analysing the effect of those more closely, it's impossible to know which bits have really been part of this and which bits do need tweaking. And of course, there are always things that will need tweaking and adjusting, but it feels as though we're in danger of discarding a lot wholesale and then going, whoops, in 3 or 5 years, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. It would be great to do this work first.
Yeah, it's old-fashioned, isn't it, to do that research first? And again, the whoops is all very well when it's something that doesn't impact someone's life forever. But children are only going to be in, year 7 once, or year 8 once, or year 4 once. I mean, that it does matter, doesn't it? I suppose my big wariness is if the teaching unions approve of something, I'm genuinely now wary, given their appalling behaviour over lockdown, particularly the National Education Union, which put not even the needs of teachers, it was just the wants of teachers. There was no evidence that teachers suffered any more from COVID or from COVID deaths at all than other people out at work. And I know you, of course, were Chief Inspector at Ofsted during those COVID years, and you spoke out from very early on about your concerns about children missing school. How much of that impact is still there in the system?
It's clear that there's some, but it's very hard to unravel what specifically lockdown, what is other social changes, what is things like smartphones. But I think the bottom line is it's clearly a tough environment for schools at the moment. We should be celebrating the good work that most schools do. We should be celebrating the successes, and we should be taking note of the fact that we've got many, many people coming to Britain from other countries to see what England has done. So there's a curious asymmetry just at the point that lots of people are looking to us to see what has contributed to the success of the English system in recent years. We're in danger of waving goodbye to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating, that, isn't it? I mean, how much do you think there's an issue with schools seem to be almost working as, you know, social workers. I've got a very good friend who's a head teacher. He says he's kind of social services and the riot squad at the same time, and doesn't you know doesn't get to do any teaching anymore. And lots of teachers say that they're dealing with discipline, they're dealing with children with mental health problems, with behavioural problems. Every child seems to have a label now of, you know, ADHD, autism. We've got 2 children in every class of 30 on average are claiming a disability or sickness or incapacity benefit of some sort. I mean, that wasn't the case when you were at school or when I was at school or most of our audience was at school. How big an issue is that in terms of actually getting round to teaching anything?
It's a pretty staggering shift. And the propensity to label, the incentives and distortions that a poorly designed benefit or support system can create. Clearly, we are at the point that systems that were designed with the best of intent to support individuals and to help schools aren't quite working as intended. The whole SEND system really could do with some much more fundamental reforms than anybody's been willing to contemplate in the last decade. The 2014 changes didn't do what was hoped, and the most recent review didn't really address that.
Yeah.
But schools need to be first and foremost places to educate children. They can't be all things to all people. And I've also consistently pushed back when people have reached for schools to solve every social problem.
Cleaning the teeth, feeding the kids, mental health, dealing with the mobile phone issue. It's kind of like, do we leave anything to parents anymore?
Parents have an important job to do, and talking about the really boring things like getting children properly potty trained before they start in reception, that matters. It's people were really surprised. I think I was the first person to start talking about the problem 7 years ago, something like that. And I remember I was on a platform with Alistair Campbell the day I made a speech about it, and the world was really surprised and said, "Is it really an issue?" And I said, "Yes, it is."
And then people started asking the teacher. I have to say, I was absolutely flabbergasted that there were parents who apparently were so feckless and useless and lazy, they couldn't be bothered to potty train their kids. And I'm thinking, so, well, you think it's less bother for your kid to be able to use the loo than you to have to spend a fortune on nappies or to have to, you know, change their pants and their jogging bottoms every 10 minutes. I've always found that utterly bizarre. So who are the parents not doing that? I mean, I'm assuming they're the same parents who don't give their kid a proper meal, don't clean their teeth and don't do anything else.
Well, that's not something I can comment on, Julia, because one of the things we never did at Ofsted was go into houses and say what are the parents like. We were just looking at the problem from the
schools were left with.
But getting that focus that schools are there first and foremost to educate, and that we cannot allow teachers and heads to be sucked away into trying to solve everything else. The constraints on social services, the substantial reductions in funding, there's no question that has pushed more work on to schools. So my plea is always to make sure that each individual service is properly funded. Don't look at schools as being the place to pick up
catch-all. Can I just ask you, just finally, what do you make of the government's policy for VAT on school fees for private schools? We've now got, I mean, I think Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor's had 4 top barristers, top KCs to defend her case against a group of parents of disabled children who make up a huge number of those who are at private school, attending, you know, vital schooling for children with severe learning disabilities that simply not available in the state system. What do you make of that decision to put VAT on private school fees?
Well, it is a real worry, as you say. There's one set of children with very severe disabilities and problems of various kinds, and government may be focusing on that. But there's also quite a lot of children who wouldn't qualify for a formal statement of special educational needs, but who nonetheless have not flourished in mainstream schools, who've got lesser kinds of difficulties, and parents have felt they've had to find an alternative. It's making it really, really hard for parents to do what they think is best for their children. And it has made us an international outlier. I don't think I know of any other country where this kind of tax is applied to education services that parents buy.
Yeah, indeed. It's very unusual, isn't it? Amanda Spielman, lovely to talk to you. I so appreciate it. I'm so glad you are still out and about, sort of passing commentary. You've always been a voice of reason on this show. Former Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman there. She was there from 2017 to 2023. Sam Armstrong, your thoughts? Just going back to the reforms. I mean, the former Ofsted Chief attacking the Education Secretary, I mean, is quite something. What do you make of the reforms that Bridget Phillipson is planning?
I think Bridget Phillipson is the most dangerous minister within this Labour
government. Have you heard of Ed Miliband?
I'm afraid.
What about Rachel Reeves?
I'm afraid I think this woman is seriously dangerous, because I fundamentally think that how we educate our children is the most important thing we do, because that is the future for our country. And Bridget Phillipson is an out-and-out class warrior that is determined to give the unions exactly what they want. And I'm sorry, but teachers' unions, they represent the adults in the classroom, they don't represent the children. And the effect of this bill is that Michaela Academy in Wembley, which educates
Catherine Burblesking School, which educates some of this country's most deprived children to the very highest level, that Bridget Phillipson is going to go into that school, which has the best scores in the country, and say, stop what you're doing right now and teach my nationally approved, union-set curriculum using my methods. And the effect will be those kids, rather than being given the very best start in life and fantastic opportunity to come out of frankly difficult circumstances, they're going to be damned to a life of mediocrity. And I just think that's so wrong. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.